One Cobb died on the waters of Loch Ness, fighting as always to win new glories for Britain, faster and faster until he was traveling at 240 miles an hour.
Pushing human limits can lead to extraordinary achievements, but sometimes the quest for glory ends in tragedy. Behind the thrill of breaking records lies a dangerous reality. When ambition meets the unexpected, the results can be catastrophic. From daring stunts to extreme experiments, these 15 world record attempts highlight moments where bold risks turned into heartbreaking consequences. Are you ready to uncover the chilling stories behind these ill-fated pursuits? Alex Harvilles' fatal motorcycle jump, 2021. On June 17, 2021, Alex Harvilles, a 28-year-old professional daredevil and motocross champion, set out to break a world record that required him to jump his motorcycle a staggering 351 feet. The attempt was part of the Moses Lake Air Show in Washington, and Harvilles had spent months preparing for the monumental feat. Known for his precision and boldness, Harvilles had already made a name for himself with jaw-dropping stunts, but this record attempt would push his skills to the limit. During a practice run just before the official attempt, tragedy struck. Harvilles approached the ramp at high speed, but as he took off, his trajectory was slightly off. Instead of landing on the planned downslope, his motorcycle collided with the edge of the dirt landing zone, sending him tumbling forward. The impact was catastrophic. Emergency responders rushed to the scene and transported Harvilles to a nearby hospital, but he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. The event stunned the stunt community and his fans worldwide. Harvilles, a husband and father of two, had often spoken about the balance between his love for pushing limits and ensuring safety. His death reignited debates about the risks involved in extreme sports and the need for enhanced safety measures. Audrey Mestres' freediving tragedy, 2002. Audrey Mestres, a French freediver, was no stranger to the depths of the ocean. Married to world-renowned freediver Francisco Pipin Ferreras, Mestres had spent years mastering the art of no-limits freediving, a discipline where divers descend to extreme depths using a weighted sled and ascend using an air-filled balloon. In October 2002, Mestres set out to break the world record by descending 561 feet into the waters off the coast of the Dominican Republic. The dive was supposed to be a carefully choreographed event, with safety divers stationed along the route and equipment in place for emergencies. Mestres descended smoothly to the record depth, but as she began her ascent, things went horribly wrong. Her lift balloon failed to inflate properly, drastically slowing her return to the surface. By the time safety divers reached her, she had been underwater far too long. They brought her to the surface, but despite desperate attempts to resuscitate her, Mestres did not survive. Her death sent shockwaves through the freediving community. Investigations revealed critical lapses in preparation, including insufficient oxygen tanks for safety divers and an absence of backup systems. The tragedy raised questions about the risks inherent in no-limits freediving and the pressures of pushing human limits in such an unforgiving environment. Guy Garmin's deep diving attempt, 2015. Guy Garmin, affectionately known as Doc Deep, was an experienced diver with an unyielding passion for exploring the underwater world. In 2015, he set out to achieve an audacious goal to break the record for the deepest recreational scuba dive by reaching 1,200 feet. The challenge was daunting, even for someone of Garmin's expertise. Deep diving at such extremes pushes both human physiology and equipment to their absolute limits. The dive took place off the coast of Saint-Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Garmin's plan was meticulously detailed, with a support team of divers stationed at various depths to provide assistance during his ascent. However, the deeper a diver goes, the less room there is for error. At such depths, the risks include nitrogen narcosis, oxygen toxicity, and equipment failure. Garmin began his descent smoothly, but trouble arose during his return. After 38 minutes underwater, he failed to re-establish contact with his support team. Despite a massive search effort, Garmin's body was never recovered. Experts speculated that a combination of physiological stress and equipment complications may have caused his untimely death. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the diving community and raised questions about the ethics of attempting such extreme dives. Critics argued that pushing the boundaries of human endurance in this way carries unacceptable risks. The incident highlighted the critical importance of redundancy in safety systems and the limits of human capability in environments not designed to sustain life. John Cobbs' water speed record attempt, 1952. In 1952, British racer John Cobb, a pioneer in high-speed endeavors, set his sights on breaking the world water speed record. Known for his achievements on land, including holding the land speed record, Cobb turned his attention to conquering the water. He built a state-of-the-art jet-powered hydroplane called the Crusader to tackle the challenge. The picturesque Loch Ness in Scotland was chosen as the site for this ambitious feat. The Crusader was an engineering marvel designed to achieve speeds of over 200 miles per hour on water. However, water presents unique challenges compared to land, including unpredictable waves and the immense stress placed on high-speed vessels. On September 29, 1952, Cobb embarked on his record attempt, racing across the loch at breathtaking speed. As the Crusader reached an estimated 240 miles per hour, disaster struck. The hydroplane disintegrated without warning, flipping violently and breaking apart. Cobb was killed instantly, leaving the team and spectators in shock. The exact cause of the crash remains a subject of speculation, but experts believe that structural instability at high speeds or a collision with a rogue wave likely triggered the catastrophic failure. Nick Pantonitas' high-altitude parachute jump, 1966. Nick Piantonita, a truck driver turned adventurer, dreamed of breaking the record for the highest parachute jump, aiming to leap from the edge of space. In the mid-1960s, Piantonita made 3 daring attempts to set the record, pushing the limits of human endurance and technology. His goal was to ascend in a helium balloon to over 120,000 feet, where he would jump and freefall back to Earth. On May 1, 1966, during his third and final attempt, Piantonita ascended to over 57,000 feet, wearing a pressurized suit to survive the near-vacuum conditions. As he prepared for the jump, tragedy struck. A depressurization incident occurred in his helmet, causing a rapid loss of oxygen. Ground control immediately initiated an emergency descent of the balloon's gondola, bringing him back to Earth within minutes. However, the damage was already done. The depressurization caused catastrophic brain damage due to lack of oxygen. Piantonita never regained consciousness and passed away 4 months later. His ambitious pursuit of the record captivated the nation, but also highlighted the extreme dangers of high-altitude jumps. Unlike modern attempts, Piantonita lacked the advanced technology and safety protocols available to contemporary skydivers. Javad Palisbanian's motorcycle stunt, 2005. Javad Palisbanian, an Iranian daredevil, set out to achieve a feat that would rival the legendary Evel Knievel. In 2005, he attempted to break Knievel's record by jumping over 22 buses on a motorcycle. The event was highly anticipated, drawing crowds eager to witness a breathtaking display of courage and skill. The setup was nothing short of dramatic. Palisbanian's team constructed a massive ramp, and his motorcycle was tuned for peak performance. The jump required perfect speed, precision, and balance to clear the buses and land safely. Palisbanian's confidence and reputation as a seasoned stunt performer made him a favorite to succeed. As he revved his engine and sped toward the ramp, the tension was palpable. He launched into the air with incredible momentum, soaring over the buses. However, tragedy struck during the landing. His motorcycle came down at the wrong angle, causing it to flip violently. The impact was fatal, and Palisbanian succumbed to his injuries on site. The accident left the audience and the stunt community in shock. Palisbanian's death underscored the extreme risks involved in high-stakes stunts, where even minor miscalculations can lead to catastrophic outcomes. His attempt reignited discussions about safety measures and the pressure performers face when attempting to break iconic records. Silendra Nathroy's Zipline attempt, 2013. Silendra Nathroy, an Indian daredevil known for his unique stunts, was determined to break records in the most unconventional way possible, using his hair. On April 28, 2013, Roy attempted to traverse a 600-foot zip line across the Teesta River in West Bengal while suspended by his ponytail. The stunt was meant to showcase his incredible pain tolerance and physical endurance. Roy, a Guinness World Record holder for previous hair-related stunts, began the attempt confidently, sliding along the zip line to the cheers of onlookers. However, partway through the journey, tragedy struck. His hair became entangled in the pulley mechanism, leaving him stranded mid-air. Struggling to free himself, Roy was suspended for over 20 minutes, exerting immense physical effort to escape the jam. Despite attempts by rescuers to reach him, the prolonged stress caused him to suffer a fatal heart attack before he could be saved. His lifeless body was eventually retrieved, leaving the audience and his supporters devastated. The tragedy raised significant questions about the safety measures employed during extreme stunts. Critics pointed out the lack of professional oversight and the absence of adequate emergency plans. Roy's death underscored the risks performers face in their pursuit of recognition, especially when safety is compromised for spectacle. Franz Reichelt's parachute suet test, 1912. Franz Reichelt, a French tailor and inventor, sought to revolutionize aviation safety with his invention of a wearable parachute suit. At a time when aviation was in its infancy, Reichelt envisioned a device that could save pilots in emergencies. Confident in his design, he decided to test it himself by leaping from the Eiffel Tower on February 4, 1912. The event attracted a crowd of curious onlookers and journalists eager to witness the daring demonstration. Wearing his parachute suit, a bulky garment designed to deploy fabric wings during freefall, Reichelt ascended the Eiffel Tower. Despite warnings from friends and officials about the dangers, he insisted on making the jump himself, believing in the viability of his invention. As he leapt from the tower's first platform, approximately 187 feet above the ground, the suit failed to deploy as intended. Reichelt plummeted to his death, landing on the frozen ground below. The tragic outcome was captured on film, becoming one of the earliest documented cases of a fatal stunt. Janaka Basnayakas buried alive stunt, 2012. Janaka Basnayaka, a 24-year-old Sri Lankan, set out to achieve an extraordinary feat, breaking the world record for the longest time buried alive. On March 5, 2012, in the town of Cantel, he enlisted the help of friends and family to assist with his daring attempt. The challenge involved being buried in a sealed pit for an extended period, a risky endeavor with little margin for error. The pit was nearly 10 feet deep, lined with soil and wood and covered with dirt and leaves once Basnayaki was inside. With no proper ventilation or monitoring systems in place, the attempt was fraught with danger. As spectators gathered around, the atmosphere was filled with anticipation. After more than 7 hours underground, his helpers excavated the pit to retrieve him. To their horror, Basnayake was unresponsive. Despite their frantic efforts to revive him and transport him to a nearby hospital, he was pronounced dead shortly after. Medical reports suggested that suffocation or a sudden cardiac arrest due to extreme stress likely caused his death. The stunt drew widespread criticism for its lack of safety precautions and the unnecessary risks involved. Basnayake's tragic death reignited conversations about the ethics of attempting dangerous stunts for fame and recognition. His story became a cautionary tale, highlighting the need for professional oversight and proper safety measures in record-breaking attempts. Matthew Cranch's human cannonball accident, 2011. Matthew Cranch, a 24-year-old stuntman, thrilled audiences with his daring performances as a human cannonball. On April 25, 2011, during a live event in Kent, England, he prepared to execute his signature act, being launched from a cannon into a safety net. The stunt had been performed countless times before, but on this day, tragedy struck. As the cannon fired, Cranch soared through the air, but the safety net that was supposed to catch him collapsed unexpectedly. Without its support, he plummeted to the ground from a height of over 40 feet. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but Cranch succumbed to his injuries shortly after. Investigations revealed that the net's anchoring mechanism had failed, rendering it useless during the critical moment of the stunt. Critics pointed to inadequate safety inspections and a lack of contingency planning as key factors in the accident. The event's organizers faced intense scrutiny, with questions raised about their adherence to safety protocols. Cranch's death sent shockwaves through the stunt community and reignited discussions about the inherent risks performers face. It highlighted the importance of rigorous safety measures and the responsibility of organizers to prioritize the well-being of participants. Carl Suteks' barrel stunt, 1985. Carl Sutek, a Canadian daredevil renowned for his audacious feats, was no stranger to risk. Having already survived a plunge over Niagara Falls in a custom-made barrel, Suteks set his sights on another daring stunt, a drop from the roof of the Houston Astrodome in 1985. The plan was to fall 180 feet into a water tank specially constructed for the event. On January 19th, with thousands of spectators watching, Suteks climbed into a cylindrical red barrel, ready to make history. However, the execution of the stunt went tragically awry. As the barrel was released, it veered off its intended trajectory and struck the rim of the water tank instead of landing squarely inside it. The impact caused catastrophic injuries to Suteks, who was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his wounds later that day. The incident prompted intense scrutiny over the event's planning and safety measures. Critics noted that the tank was too shallow and inadequately prepared for the stunt. Even fellow daredevils questioned the wisdom of attempting such a high-risk feat in an indoor venue. Owen Quinn's World Trade Center parachute jump, 1975. Owen Quinn made headlines in 1975 by becoming the first person to parachute off the World Trade Center in New York City. A skydiving enthusiast and construction worker, Quinn planned the unauthorized jump with meticulous precision. He aimed to demonstrate his skill and achieve a historic feat while avoiding injury and legal repercussions. On July 22, 1975, Quinn smuggled his parachute to the top of the South Tower, which was still under construction. Disguising himself as a worker, he positioned himself near the edge and leapt off, free-falling for several seconds before deploying his parachute. Spectators on the ground watched in awe as Quinn gracefully landed on the sidewalk below, unharmed. While the jump was a success in execution, the legal aftermath was less triumphant. Quinn was immediately arrested and charged with trespassing and reckless endangerment. He defended his stunt as a harmless act of thrill-seeking, but authorities were less amused. Though he avoided jail time, the event highlighted the dangers of such unauthorized feats, especially in an urban environment. Jessica Dubrof's cross-country flight, 1996. Jessica Dubros, a 7-year-old aspiring pilot, captivated the nation in 1996 with her goal to become the youngest person to fly across the United States. Accompanied by her flight instructor and her father, Jessica was at the controls of a small Cessna 177B as part of the ambitious journey. Despite her enthusiasm and burgeoning skills, the attempt ended tragically just 3 days after it began. On April 11, 1996, shortly after taking off from Cheyenne, Wyoming, the plane encountered severe weather conditions. Torrential rain and strong winds made the flight increasingly difficult. The aircraft struggled to gain altitude and crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 3 on board. Jessica's dream of making history turned into a heartbreaking tragedy that left the nation reeling. The crash sparked widespread debate about the ethics and safety of allowing children to undertake such high-risk endeavors. Critics argued that the attempt prioritized media attention over safety, questioning the judgment of those who encouraged Jessica's record-setting bid. Aviation experts also highlighted the dangers of flying in adverse weather, particularly for inexperienced co-pilots. Thomas Fitzpatrick's drunken flight, 1956. Thomas Fitzpatrick, a former Marine and skilled pilot, etched his name into urban legend with one of the most outrageous stunts in aviation history. On a late night in 1956, after a spirited bar bet in New York City, Fitzpatrick claimed he could land a plane on a city street. Fueled by alcohol and sheer audacity, he proceeded to make his claim a reality. Fitzpatrick borrowed a small single-engine plane from a nearby airfield without permission. Guided by nothing more than instinct and bravado, he piloted the aircraft through Manhattan's densely packed airspace in the dead of night. Miraculously, he landed the plane on St. Nicholas Avenue in Harlem, right in front of the bar where the bet originated. His feat was so precise that witnesses initially struggled to believe it was real. While Fitzpatrick escaped injury, he didn't escape the law. He was arrested and charged with grand larceny and other offenses. Incredibly, 2 years later, he repeated the stunt after another bar bet, landing a plane on a different Manhattan street. The second time earned him a stricter sentence, but it solidified his reputation as a daredevil. Vzna Vulovichs' survival record, 1972. On January 26, 1972, Vzna Vulovichs, a 22-year-old flight attendant for Yugoslav Airlines, became the sole survivor of an aviation disaster that claimed 27 lives. Her miraculous story began when a bomb detonated aboard Flight 367, causing the plane to break apart mid-air at an altitude of 33,000 feet. Vzna's survival remains the world record for the highest fall without a parachute, cementing her place in history. The DC-9 aircraft was en route from Copenhagen to Belgrade when a terrorist bomb allegedly planted by a Croatian nationalist group exploded in the cargo hold. The blast tore the plane apart, sending passengers and crew plummeting toward the snowy forests of what is now the Czech Republic. Vzna, who had been stationed near the tail, was trapped by a food cart that pinned her to part of the fuselage. Against all odds, Vzna survived the impact. Experts attribute her survival to the combination of the plane's crash into a heavily wooded and snow-covered area, which cushioned the fall, and the fuselage's structure, which shielded her from the worst of the impact. She suffered severe injuries, including a fractured skull, broken legs, and temporary paralysis. But after months of recovery, she regained her mobility. Vesna's story captivated the world, making her a symbol of resilience and luck. She was celebrated as a national hero in Yugoslavia and became an advocate for peace, opposing violence and terrorism. Despite her fame, Vzna remained humble, often stating she felt guilty for being the sole survivor of such a tragedy